BBC 5 Live again in 2011, and after 2010, we've got some way to go to beat that, haven't we?
Yeah, but I don't see any reason why it won't be as hard fought as what it was last year. For this season, I think we've got a lot to look forward to for this season, Formula One. We've got the reintroduction of KERS, the option to run that. We've got the movable rear wing. I know you've just been listening to Martin and Jake talking about all of that. Maybe we can go into slightly more detail if you want, from a driver's point of view. Obviously still doing work for Mercedes GP as well on their simulator. Yeah. So I'm fully up to speed on all of the advancements for this year in terms of all the driver aids that are there at least. And it's going to be pretty tricky for the drivers to get their head around. It's a bit of a minefield, a bit of a one-man band now inside the car. And we saw last year with the F-duct drivers taking their hands off the wheel to do whatever they were doing inside to vent off the ducting so they could stall the rear wing. Now there's going to be a switch or a button somewhere, either on the steering wheel or somewhere else in the car, that you can essentially do the same thing as an F-duct, but a much more effective way by just moving the actual wing itself. And you're pretty much able to use it wherever you want, as you were with the F-duct. It's going to gain you anything up to 15 kilometers an hour down the straight at top speed. So you're going to see a huge discrepancy of speed between the two cars. But come the race, you're only allowed to use it when you're within a second of the car in front.
And who decides? How do you count? How do you make a visual 1 second?
Well, it's done through timing loops. So I guess if you pass the car under the final timing loop before coming on to the next straight, then you're going to be eligible once you cross the FIA timing beacon. We're not sure exactly where that's going to be at this point, but say coming into Monza turn 1, you've got that huge long straight to activate your wing if you're close enough to the car in front. And you're going to just sail past the sitting duck in front of you. And don't forget, you can't change your gear ratios either. So the guys are going to be setting up the cars with a 7th gear tall enough to just pull the car along with the decreased rear wing level. And as soon as you aren't eligible to run that decreased wing level, you might not even get into 7th gear. It might be that different on the straight. It's somewhere like Monza.
If you come out of the parabolica leading the last corner of the Grand Prix, you might not win.
You're going to be a sitting duck. Well, it depends where the timing loop is. And I think if the FIA are clever about it, they'll put them relatively close to the braking zone. So if you are close to within about a second, that's pretty close actually. It's about as close as you can ever get before it's just impossible to get within a 9/10 barrier. We saw that many times last year, even with the movable front wing. The guys just could not get anywhere closer than 9/10 away. So to get to within that golden area of a second away is going to be a mission in its own right. But then you've obviously got the KERS, and if you can boost your way out of a corner using the KERS, and another 80 horsepower advantage, that might just give you the second, that sort of golden distance that you need before you can operate your rear wing.
Martin Brundle was wondering yesterday if the lights on the Ferraris might come on just a nanosecond earlier than anyone else's.
Well, I mean, that is governed by the timing loop, and it won't be activated, as far as I'm aware, until you are past the timing loop. And seeing as they all run the MES system, the McLaren electronic system, it can be easily governed through the FIA. They will decide when to operate it or when not to. But from in the cockpit, basically, you'll just have some lights come on to tell you you're allowed to use it, and from there, you'll gain your straight line speed on your competitor in front. And I'm not sure where the loop will be. But if it was me coming up with the rules, I would try and get them as close to the braking zone as possible, so that you only give them a chance to at least put yourself in a position where you can outbrake the guy rather than just sail past in the straight line. So we'll wait and see how they do it, but I hope they do it that way.
You can engineer out the sort of artificial nature of it, can't you, if you do it properly?
Yeah, you can. You're basically, what they should use it for is to take away the disadvantage of the dirty air that you're following, to gain you back that advantage of following the car in front and to gain a proper slipstream. Because it's strange that the cars as well today, they don't actually offer that much in terms of slipstream value. So you can't just tow up to the back of a car and shoot past them like you can, say, in a Formula Ford, for instance. The engineers are clever at not just gaining you grip, but also taking grip away from the car following you because of the wake of the car in front.
Now, you've been busy simulating all this sort of extra work that drivers have got to do in the Mercedes simulator in Brackley. It's going to be really hard, isn't it? They've got to concentrate on driving the car. They've got to activate KERS, push the button for the wing, possibly while having some lock on, and trying to look in the mirror.
Yeah, I can tell you now, it's definitely going to favour the drivers with more capacity. And by that I mean drivers that are able to not just think about driving quickly, but also think about all the other gizmos going on within the car. We saw already a situation last year with Vitaly Petrov choosing not to run the F-duct around a track like Singapore because it was all just a bit too much. And, I can totally see why. And drivers that have more capacity are more at home with the whole car and the scene or the circuit, for instance, then, they're going to have a huge advantage. And drivers that put more time in the simulator as well, they're going to have a bigger advantage.
Felipe Massa's already said, hasn't he, that it's going to be a problem, and he's not someone who can afford to increase his psychological disadvantage at Ferrari.
Well, obviously he's got his teammate alongside him in Fernando that's a wily old fox nowadays, isn't he? And he's not going to give any stone unturned when it comes to performance. So I think Fernando's going to be one of those drivers that can really edge the performance his way in all of this new electronic trickery. And Ferrari's another team that had the beauty of running the KERS package in 2009 as well. So they've at least got experience of running that. So I think they're gonna be strong as well as McLaren and obviously Mercedes as well. Anyone that's running the Mercedes system, surely, or the Mercedes engine, is going to be in an advantageous position as well coming into this year.
Let's talk for a minute about Anthony Davidson, the broadcaster. You've taken to it very quickly and very well. Did you find it hard at first? It's radio, so you've got to talk about what people can't see.
Yeah, I didn't find it that difficult because I didn't feel pressure when I first started doing radio work back in, I don't know when it was, 2004 I think was the first time I did it, alongside Jonathan Ledyard with the radio. And I was driving that time on the Fridays in the Formula One, and I would have the experience of driving around doing the testing work on the Friday, and then I would just join my mates up in the commentary box. They asked if I'd be up for it, and I said yes. Didn't know what to expect. And it was great fun, to chat away about the sport you love and talk about your experiences from the Friday and talk about the evolution of the track and what the tyres were like that weekend in particular, and just all of the challenges that went with it. I was just talking about the sport I loved, so I didn't really feel it was a job ever as such. And I just sort of went with the flow and talked about a race, and I was always the third person. So you had Maurice Hamilton and Jonathan Ledyard doing their thing, and then I was the third voice that would just come in and point the odd thing out, or they would ask my opinion on a move that had happened on the circuit, and then it's kind of escalated from there really. And I've found myself in this position where obviously the racing still comes first, and I'm going to miss a few races this year as well because of that. But I still don't really see it as I'm a broadcaster and that's what I do now and I've got to look long term. I just still see it like I turn up to the track and chat about Formula One with my mates, and Crofty and David Croft. He's a brilliant guy to get the best out of yourself from. He's a jovial guy that really spurs you on to have a good chinwag about the sport you love.
Absolutely right, and I feel the same. Working for Autosport, I've read it all my life. It's just it's a paid hobby. Brundle was saying the other day that he's read that he's going to be under unimaginable strain trying to do this grid walk commentary running up to the thing, and he said, to me, unimaginable strain is fighting in Afghanistan or bringing up a child in Africa. Not standing around chatting to my mates on the grid and then watching a motor race that I love on telly.
See, that's the thing, when it's a topic you know so well, it comes fairly easily to become enthused about it and to spot certain details that maybe someone else that hasn't driven the car before or that circuit, they can't do. It's easier for you to do that, but it will always be more of a struggle to string the sentence together, to fill in a stat about a particular driver or circuit, roll in the history as well for that given moment when it just happens in front of your eyes. And that's something that that's going to be a bit more pressure, I guess, or not pressure as such, but a bit of a challenge for Martin's sake. But I've heard him do broadcasting before, in a production way before, and I think it's going to be effortless for him to do that. So I think everybody listening into the BBC and watching as well they're going to be in for a real treat this year.
Yeah, you mentioned tyres a moment ago. Pirelli's back in Formula One. Bridgestone is out. A whole new sort of ball game for the teams with tyres. With all your testing experience and evaluating new parts, including tyres, how do you think it's going to shape up?
It's always hard for a manufacturer to come in and, first of all, gain the trust of every single team, for you to help set the cars up for the teams as well, because it's probably something that not many people know, is that the tyre manufacturer actually governs what camber angles a team can get away with running, what ride heights they can do as well, how much pressure they can get away with running in the tyre. They know all this information, and it's dictated to the teams, the limitations. And you have to trust your tyre manufacturer for that. So, it is a relationship between every single team, also sworn secrecy as well, between what other teams are doing up and down the grid, how their tyre wear is, how they're looking after their tyres. That's all important stuff and valuable information for another team to get hold of. So to trust your tyre supplier to give up all of your information, that's one thing. The next thing is the challenge in itself for the tyre manufacturer to come along and produce a tyre that can easily dovetail from last season's Bridgestone tyre, and Bridgestone have been doing that for a long, long time, and knew full well where their tyre was in terms of reliability and grip levels, and between the two different compounds as well. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for them, but I'm sure Pirelli, they're very experienced in motorsport in general, and maybe in the first couple of races we will see some extra fatigue here and there in the tyre that will spice up the races. I think it's only going to be a good thing. And I think Pirelli also a bit more committed in making it, they're aware that it should be more of a show, and that you should have differences in the softer compound, the harder compound, something that people can really understand, because it was, in my opinion, it was too limited last year and previous years gone by. It's easy for a single tyre manufacturer, when they have the monopoly on the sport, to play it safe. And I really hope that they don't. I really hope they go for it, and we do see tyres shredding up and graining heavily, and and drivers having to cope with that. I really hope we see that, because that's a skill that road car drivers have to have as well. They have to understand how a tyre works in all kinds of condition, and it's a skill for a driver to have as well, a racing driver, in keeping your equipment alive. And nowadays with semi-automatic gears and left-foot braking, back in the day you had auto upshift and downshift as well. There was just no way that the driver could have any kind of degradation in his material. It was only the tyre. And then we found ourselves in a situation last year where we had almost bulletproof tyres for the whole race, regardless of what construction or compound you're on. I really hope we see a bit more of a show for this season. I think they're more up for it as well.
Yeah, here. Any changes to the setup then with 5 Live? You and Crofty at the coalface, and then you've got Natalie Pinkham, haven't you? The new Holly.
Yeah, Natalie has joined the team for this season after Holly Samos has taken leave after. Yeah, she's, I think, rightly so, looking after her little one at home. So although we'll miss Holly massively, we've welcomed Natalie to the team, and we're looking forward to working with her. So I think, like anybody jumping into the new world of Formula One, there's a lot to learn. But with our team being a small team, the radio team, we'll teach her quickly, and I think she's going to be a true professional. I've heard her doing a few interviews already, and it's fantastic stuff. So it's just learning the details that go with Formula One. That's going to be the challenge for her. So give her a bit of time, and I think she's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, good stuff. We look forward to watching you race and listening to you talk. Have a great season. Thanks for talking to us. Anthony Davidson, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.